I wake up in a cold sweat. I can't get it out of my head. The case has been sitting on my desk for years, unsolved. The Men in Black ride. We know that this ride is in some danger due to its age. It has reached the 20-year mark, which is historically a common death sentence for many Universal attractions. That being said, with Men in Black's popularity and re-rideability as well as its unique ride system, it actually doesn't have to worry about that as much as another internal factor, that being its actual health and well-being. Is the ride actually in good enough working condition to be able to continue on for another 5 to 10 years? Well, there are certainly signs that are pointing to that possibly being the case. You see, Men in Black has a partner in crime, a sister attraction, if you will. That ride being Cat in the Hat. It's very obvious that these two rides have the same ride system, thus must have been manufactured by the same company. However, these two rides have veered on vastly different paths, even though Cat in the Hat only opened up 1 year before Men in Black did. While Men in Black has remained mostly unchanged as far as its ride system goes, Cat in the Hat has slowly but surely lost its spinning factor over the years, and it's become much less frequent and much less intense as the years have gone on. There are two theories out there explaining why this is. The one that I have used for years and have taken for granted is the fact that the ride manufacturer who made these two rides went out of business and thus cannot supply parts to Universal anymore for these rides, so the Cat in the Hat had to remove its spinning and essentially go into B mode. However, this doesn't do a great job of explaining why Men in Black has pretty much gone unchanged. It's only 1 year older. Why hasn't it also lost its spin? My theory for this is that parts from Cat in the Hat have been moved to Men in Black to help service that ride, since that ride is geared towards much older audiences, so they probably want a more intense experience there, whereas Cat in the Hat, since it's more geared towards families, makes a lot more sense that that can be toned down and become less intense. However, if I'm being honest, the other theory explains why this is much better than the theory I've taken for granted. On my Cat in the Hat video, many anonymous insiders came to my aid to inform me of this theory in the underground comment section below. The interesting about these inside tips is that they all said something very similar, but all very different at the same time. The gist of the theory was that either 1, the ride was too unsafe, or 2, was too intense for its target audience and thus needed to be slowed down. The weird thing about this theory is that nobody seems to have a concrete tale of the tape. Everyone has a different version of the same story. Some people say, oh, it was children that actually got hurt or got sick on the ride, or it was the parents complaining about it being too intense, or it was actually old people who got sick on the ride and couldn't ride with their grandkids. Due to the nature of everyone having a different tale to tell, it's very tough for me to take a theory like this at face value and consider it to be valid. That is, until I got a source. Yes, one of my anonymous insiders gave me a source, something that is very rare, very hard to find on the internet nowadays. Following up on this source, it leads me to a website called Orlando Theme Park News. Now, I've never heard of this website, but it doesn't really matter the validity of said website, since basically what the article does is just quote another website, that being Screamscape. Screamscape being a very reputable source from my experience with them. They usually get a lot of things right. They don't get everything right, but a lot of their rumors are pretty spot on. They seem to have some good insiders. However, this article is from May of 2010, which, if I'm being honest, is even earlier than I had thought the Cat in the Hat had slowed down on its spins. But apparently it had started even back then. Anyways, let's read up on this and let's see what this article has to say. According to an insider, my hunch about why Cat in the Hat is no longer spinning is said to be true. Speaking was only as an anonymous source, they reported that there was a minor incident involving a family with a small child on the ride. At some point in the ride, the adults were not paying attention to the child, who had apparently gotten a little scared and slid down to the car's floor under the lap bar. Upon approaching the revolving tunnel scene, the couch began its usual spin sequence, which results in the child being ejected from the ride car. The family isn't taking responsibility for their child's actions. Meanwhile, Universal's ride crew also failed to spot this on the security camera feeds and press an e-stop as well. So for now, all spinning has stopped on the ride until Universal Creative and the engineering team come up with a fix to prevent this from happening again. Now, the interesting thing about all this is there's no mention of a lawsuit. It seems like there would be a lawsuit involved in a scenario like this. On top of this, there's nothing else that I can find online that refers to this situation. Well, maybe if I could check up on Screamscape, maybe they followed up on this scenario, maybe there's something else I could find, and oh right, Screamscape doesn't keep archives of previous posts on their website. So, looks like that's the end of the rabbit trail, huh? But wait 1 second. How about I take a play out of Universal's playbook, I hop in the DeLorean, and we're going back to 2010, baby! Let's go! 2010. A time before Harry Potter? That's scary. But a time while Jaws is still here. Ain't that fantastic? Oh my. Wait, hold on. I can't get carried away, man. I gotta get to work. Okay? Gotta solve this case. So, let's see here. Screamscape.com. Alright, let's take a look here. Okay, alright, hold on. We got something here. So in April 26, 2010, this was when Screamscape first noticed that Cat in the Hat was not spinning. Over the past week or so, we've heard new reports that the Cat in the Hat is no longer spinning the way it normally does during the ride. While the standard line to guess has typically been to indicate that there was an issue being worked on, others have pointed out that the park is actually testing out a new ultra mellow ride program. About the only time it spun at all was during the big closet spin scene, and even that is said to be toned way down. No word yet on when or even if the normal spinning program will return. Anyone know more? And presumably, this must have been when that anonymous inside source came to Screamscape with that story. However, as I look through Screamscape more here, I see the article that was featured on Orlando Theme Park News, but I'm not seeing any other mention of Cat in the Hat this whole year. It seems like the rest of the page was taken over by Harry Potter news once that opened in June. There was nothing else to speak about when it came to the Cat in the Hat story. So is it possible that this story about the small child being ejected and that being the reason why it slowed down be true? Maybe, but the fact that there was never a follow-up from Screamscape about this kind of hurts its validity once again. Well, obviously I have to go deeper, so I've seen enough here, and I guess it's time to finally go
Back to the Future!
Alright, now that I'm back in present day, I can use modern technology to go ahead and look up old articles and see if there's anything else out there that can give us insight into this situation. The first thing I found is an article from Attractions Magazine, another reputable source, stating that they had saw Screamscape's article about Cat in the Hat slowing down and went out to test it for themselves and confirmed that there was a lot less spinning with less force, which gives us a pretty key indicator that yes, indeed, Cat in the Hat did slow down back in 2010. However, here's where things get interesting. There is no talk online about Cat in the Hat having slowed down outside of those two instances in 2010. That is until 4 years later in 2014, March of 2014 that is, when Tuba Geek on Inside Universal makes this thread, Cat in the Hat not spinning? And talks about how Cat in the Hat had slowed down. It was asking how long it had gone on for, and nobody mentions that it had gone on for 4 years. It seems like everybody in this forum had believed that it was just something that had started recently. On top of this, there was also an article published in December 2014 saying again that the Cat in the Hat had slowed down at that time. And then there's also this post on UO Fan Guide, a website I know nothing about, that says that it slowed down in 2014 due to complaints about motion sickness. With no source. So I don't know where they're pulling that from. I mean, that is just a completely like rabbit out of the hat moment. I don't know what they're saying there, but there's that too. So all of this information can pretty much indicate to us one of two things. Either one, the ride did start slowing down in 2010, but then was brought up to such a drastic level in 2014 that your general audiences started to actually notice it. Or two, it did slow down in 2010, but then that action was reversed. It was brought back to its normal state and then was slowed down again to an even more drastic degree in 2014. Either way, we know that it had to have slowed down again in 2014 unless for some reason it took 4 years for anybody else on the internet outside of Screamscape and Attraction Magazine to even notice that it had indeed slowed down. The odd part about this is that neither Screamscape or Attractions Magazine, who reported on it slowing down in 2010, mention anything about it slowing down in 2014. Screamscape does not mention Cat in the Hat once in all of 2014. So what it seems like to me is that through this research, we can prove that yes, indeed, the ride has slowed down, and it has been slowing down since at least 2010. However, although many people like to claim different things about why exactly it slowed down, we have no concrete evidence still about why exactly that happened. And that leaves the theory open for it being the ride manufacturer shut down and is no longer supplying parts. That is still in play here, as even though it seems like many people are going with the motion sickness or the intensity or the safety of the ride being the reason for it, there is just not enough clear evidence to call it a day at that. So that brings me to researching my theory, the theory that I didn't make, but I certainly take for granted, and that is that the ride manufacturer went out of business. Now, to do research on this, unfortunately, I have to use the thing that teachers hate the most, and that is Wikipedia. I mean, on a subject like this, there really isn't too many other sources that I can use, so we're going with Wikipedia. And according to Wikipedia, Men in Black Alien Attack was manufactured by MTS Systems Corporation. When you go to this page and you look up this company, not only are they still in business, but they are a publicly traded, well-off company. So that's it, right? Theory busted. MTS is still around. They're dominating. Not so fast, my friend. What does MTS even do? It seems like they're an engineering firm that has a testing division where they test out different ideas and projects for companies, and they have a sensors division where they actually manufacture sensors. Though I can see how those things are important to ride manufacturing, neither of those things are ride manufacturing. Later in the Wikipedia article, it lists this: manufacturing and design for Universal Parks and Resorts, including the launch system for the Incredible Hulk coaster, the ride system for Cat in the Hat and Men in Black Alien Attack at Universal Orlando, and Jaws at Universal Studios Japan, as well as the dinosaurs at Islands of Adventure's Jurassic Park River Adventure. What? I mean, listen, I knew that Cat in the Hat and Men in Black were made by the same company, but the rest of the stuff too? I don't know, man. It seems a little fishy. Because let's be honest, I mean, it doesn't seem like MTS is really much of a ride manufacturer. Let's see the sources on these. Are these sources actually legit? And, oh, well, this is interesting. Neither of the links for these two sources still exist. You can't find these anywhere anymore. Huh. Well, that's not a good look. Maybe MTS wasn't actually the ride manufacturer after all. And maybe this is just some false information. But wait, hold on one second. Amusement Business. Let's look those guys up. Huh. Looks like they were a fairly reputable source in the amusement industry, having a magazine for over 100 years that wrote articles on this. And to add fuel to the fire here, Tim O'Brien, the guy who wrote this article, is an IAAPA Hall of Famer. These guys are well respected. So honestly, assuming that Wikipedia is not misquoting this article, which unfortunately I cannot find online, then this information has to be true, and MTS has to have actually manufactured Cat in the Hat, Men in Black, and Jaws. That being said though, this reference does not apply to the Jurassic Park or Hulk situation. Looking at Jurassic Park's Wikipedia page, there's no mention of MTS, so I don't know what the validity of that is. And as far as Incredible Hulk, this is actually mentioned on the Wikipedia page there, but what's the source? Oh, it's this video, Total Immersion by USA Network. And that's actually very interesting because I've seen this video before. I have 100% seen it on YouTube, and I quite recall them basically implying that it was made in-house. Let's take a look.
So what we did was, we went to this company that builds oil derricks and builds this big machinery. We had them build this mock-up for us. Basically, they took a couple of box cars, welded them together, put them up on an angle, and rigged up this whole deal with this dune buggy on a track.
And hung some weights off of a pulley at the other end, and we dropped the weight. Dune buggy shot up inside of these 3 box cars.
We were strapped into this dune buggy like we were going on a rocket ride. We had these helmets, we had all this padding around us, we had cameras mounted to the thing, so if we passed out or something, we'd have some video record we could pass on to our heirs. As you get in there and you get yourself locked in, you realize at the end of this big launch thing, they painted a target on the wall. You look over and there's a person sitting here and they kind of look over at you, and you kind of make this eye contact, and there's this moment of like, what the hell do we do for a living? I mean, is this a job? Boosh! You're gone before you even have a chance to even think about it. And we tried 1G, we tried 2Gs, 3Gs, 4Gs, 5Gs.
And it was the 1G we locked into as being the real thrill.
Oh, I see. So, an oil derrick company that helped you test out the concept. Test. What company has a testing division and has worked in the oil industry? Ah, MTS. Now, I don't know why he refers to them as oil derrick company. Maybe I'm wrong in seeing that this is MTS, but the rest of the video never mentions another company helping them with the Hulk outside of this one clip. So this has to be referring to MTS then, assuming that Wikipedia is claiming this as a source that MTS helped make it, when in actuality they didn't manufacture it, they helped test it. So what does this mean? I mean, it could honestly mean that MTS maybe didn't even really fully manufacture the ride systems for Men in Black, Cat in the Hat, and Jaws, and maybe those were more so made in-house and MTS just helped, right? We don't really know what exactly happened here, especially since we don't have access to these amusement business articles that Wikipedia is sourcing. We don't know exactly what the wording here is and if they are exactly actually the manufacturer or if there's more at play here. On top of this, the last theme park ride that MTS apparently manufactured was Jaws at University of Japan in 2001. It has been 20 years since they last manufactured a ride. So even if they are the manufacturer, they haven't done anything in the amusement industry in 20 years. So it seems like they are not doing that anymore. They don't have that division as a part of their company anymore. So even though the company is still around, they don't do that anymore. So it's possible they are no longer supplying parts or service to Universal. Adding on to this, MTS has a very detailed website that goes through their entire history and timeline, and there is not one mention of any of these rides, Universal, or their ride manufacturing division. It's as if they never existed. So you really gotta wonder if MTS was actually even the manufacturer or if they just helped test out and develop the ride systems like they did for Hulk. So what do we have right now? We know that Cat in the Hat started slowing down in 2010 and progressively got worse by 2014. At that point, it became extremely noticeable. We know that Men in Black and Cat in the Hat share the same ride system and share the same ride manufacturer. The implication is that that ride manufacturer is MTS Systems. However, MTS does not make rides anymore, so they seem to be out of the business and that division seems to no longer exist. So they probably aren't providing service to Universal anymore. There are certainly more to this story, but as it stands right now, it's plausible that the theory that it's just Cat in the Hat's situation and it need to be lowered in intensity, that is still possible. Is it still possible that because MTS doesn't make rides anymore, that is the reason why Cat in the Hat slowed down and will eventually cause Men in Black to meet its demise? It is certainly possible. I mean, we don't know. And as far as this rabbit hole has gone, it really has left us with not much of a concrete solution. So that's why I call upon you, my anonymous insiders from the underground comment section below. Please, if you have any information or any thoughts or any ideas of what could potentially be the situation here, please do not be shy to let me hear it in the comments below. If you have a source, that's always great too, but even if you don't, go ahead and voice your opinions. Every thought is going to help us bring us closer to solving this mystery. With that being said, I'll see you all next time. Peace.